We need to get this little home.
Tick-tock, alarm clock, I'm gonna be late. Porridge toast, kids, car, bloody school gate. Factory floor, what a chore, another week's craft.
It's not bad, is it? Bad suggests that, it's evil or something. It's not. It's poor. It's shit. It's a shit sitcom.
It's a shitcom.
Well-
oh, we've sorted that out. Thanks very much. That's the career over.
That's what one of the reviewers said.
I've been watching Ricky Gervais for as long as I can remember. The Office is, in my opinion, the best British comedy ever made. Extras is a show I've seen 1,000 times, and still never fails to make me laugh, or at the very least, cringe. An Idiot Abroad was another staple in my house for years. All of my immediate family were obsessed with it. Then there's also the legendary XFM radio show, which ran for nearly 4 years, and gave birth to countless ridiculous and hilarious moments, such as this.
Yeah. It was going on about the nuclear bomb and how powerful it is, and they put a manhole cover on top of one.
Okay.
Blew it up.
Yeah.
Never saw the manhole cover again.
But I think it's fair to say, at least in terms of the quality of his output, Ricky Gervais has been on a downward spiral for a long time now. Starting with Derek, Gervais's observations about human nature seem to become less insightful, dulling his comedic edge while allowing a bizarre surface-level sentimentality to creep into his writing that rarely felt grounded in any real understanding of people. That's not to say he'd completely lost me. The first season of Derek still made me laugh plenty of times, and even the first season of Afterlife had its moments. But the sentimentality only became more overbearing with time. Afterlife seemed to double down on the emotional stakes while ramping up Gervais's mean-spiritedness, fusing every angry shower conversation he's ever had with a poorly acted, painfully corny attempt at sincere drama. By the time I was forcing my way through its final season, I remember thinking to myself, this is exactly the kind of thing I would have written at 17 years old, believing I was going to become the next Ken Loach, without any of the life experience or talent.
I'm not well, but I remember what it was like to be normal, so I do an impression of that. But this is what I really am.
Radiohead. That's not mine.
No, I know. It's good.
Lisa got it from.
Did she? Yeah, she loved him.
His stand-ups followed a similar trajectory, with maybe only a handful of jokes that I've enjoyed over the past 10 plus years, while his social media presence has become increasingly insufferable, constantly bragging about how offensive everyone thinks he is, while reassuring everyone that he doesn't give a fuck about how many people he offends. It's almost as if he's been stuck in a defensive Golden Globes mode since 2015, slowly morphing into the worst possible version of himself, endlessly self-aggrandizing about his unique ability to say the supposedly unsayable, as his ego continues to swell beyond all recognition. At the same time, he now seems unwilling to even acknowledge the existence of people who helped create the work that made him famous in the first place. Look through the comments on virtually anything Ricky Gervais posts these days, and you'll be bombarded with memes about his conspicuous refusal to acknowledge the essential contributions of his previous collaborators. And all of that brings us to Alley Cats. Not just the worst thing Ricky Gervais has ever done, but potentially the worst Netflix show of all time.
How's your sitcom going?
Brilliant. Ratings are brilliant.
Yeah, the review's very harsh.
Don't
very
read
harsh.
reviews. Don't bother.
No?
No.
I think I've got one here, actually. As I watched this abysmal time warp comedy, I found myself expecting someone to shout, "I'm free," and for Andy Millman to exclaim, Betty, the Cats just shat out the worst sitcom of all time."
I guess the most obvious problem with Alley Cats is that it's absolutely fucking disgusting to look at. To some extent, you could say that's intentional. These are dirty, mangy alley cats living in squalor, and it's not like I'd expect a crass TV comedy to compete with Isle of Dogs. But surely they could have come up with something slightly more inspired. There's nothing wrong with animation being deliberately grotesque, or even outright ugly, but there's a difference between using ugliness as an artistic choice and making something that looks like tacky shit. These character designs are genuinely hideous. They're basic, awkward, and worst of all, inexpressive. For a show that's almost entirely dependent on these characters talking to one another, their faces do a terrible job of communicating any kind of nuanced emotion. There's so little personality in the presentation that it makes already meandering conversations even flatter than if they were pulled from an audio-exclusive podcast. This is supposed to be a Netflix animated series released in 2026, and it looks absolutely rancid in all the wrong ways. Even Top Cat was doing the whole urban cat aesthetic better in 1961. You know, just 65 years ago. But Alley Cat's crowning achievement is how it's able to pull off something I didn't think possible. It makes Big Mouth look visually inspired. Of course, looking like shit wouldn't necessarily be a deal breaker if Alley Cats was actually funny. Unfortunately, the show only gets worse once these cats open their ugly mouths.
How do you want to die?
Hand job?
How would you die of that?
Dunno, I panicked.
Comedy is about as subjective as criticism gets, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be the ultimate objective arbiter of humour. What I can tell you is that across the entire 6-episode series, I didn't so much as crack a smirk. And considering just how relentlessly this thing throws jokes at you, I found that almost impressive. The biggest problem is that the vast majority of conversations in Alley Cats have a loose, improvisational quality that makes it feel like Gervais is attempting to recapture the spirit of his old XFM radio show, without any of the organic camaraderie that made it so great in the first place. There is a lot of talent among the cast, and I'm sure they regularly made each other laugh, but it never translated to the screen for me.
Humans are shit without guns, aren't they?
What do you mean?
Wow. Look at the way the useless fuckers hunt. You know what I mean?
Can't do a fucking thing.
Usually with animation, you do all the animation first, and then you get actors, and you're alone in a booth. You know, this, we were all in the same room at the same time. We did all that first, so we got all the content and then animated to that. So that's why it feels sort of real and like mates talking and swearing.
Yeah.
It is like a podcast with a story.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Most of the time, there is zero reason for these characters to be cats. And honestly, I wonder if the show would have been better if they were just human beings. Gervais's humour seems to operate on the assumption that simply saying something outrageous is inherently funny. The cats swear, they talk about sex, they brag about the fact that they still have their balls. And sometimes, that's the entire joke.
You've had actual sex with a cat fanny?
Of course I bloody well have. Huh? Loads of times. Fucking mess down there. You know it. Have a look. No, have a proper look. I gave a hedgehog anal.
It's safe to say I love offensive comedy, I love dark comedy, I love jokes that make you wonder, how the fuck did they get away with putting this on television? But once your frontal lobe has finished developing, you come to realise there still has to be a joke underneath the surface level shock humour.
I'm looking at you, but I'm thinking about that squirrel in the tree.
Right.
If something's got a heartbeat, or not, doesn't matter, I will fuck it.
Perhaps even more unbearable than all the outrageous language, though, are the incredibly low-effort jokes about cat behaviour. They're scared of cucumbers.
Fucking hell. Just a cucumber, just a cucumber. Everyone chill, yeah?
Technically, that's mine now.
What is?
They take shits, and then they bury those shits.
He's only just cold in the ground, mate.
Well, this shit will warm him up then, won't it? Oh. Look at that.
You know, some truly genius observations that I'm sure nobody has ever made about cats before. What's particularly strange about all of this is that Ricky Gervais obviously knows how to construct comedy. The Office and Extras weren't funny because David Brent or Andy Millman just wandered around saying the most offensive thing the writers could think of. The best jokes came from character. They came from awkwardness, misunderstanding, and embarrassment, from people desperately trying to maintain an image of themselves while everyone around them could see straight through it, all of which felt like scarily accurate representations of human behaviour that are rarely captured this well in film and television. And when those characters did say something outrageous, the context was usually what made it funny.
I'm sure he's looking forward to having a whole new group of men underneath him. Anyway, here's the man at the top of the pile, David Brent.
Right, you know you were saying there about me being the top of the pile of men, right, saying I'm gay. Right, I'm not gay. In fact, I can honestly say I've never come over a little queer.
Here, far too often, so-called outrageousness is the context.
Interestingly, the reason that the cat penis has got the barbs is so that post-mating, post-coitus, the barbs actually cause pain for the female cat, and that in turn brings about ovulation.
Well, that's not why I use them.
What do you use them for?
Well, I go fishing.
But don't worry, because alley cats won't just try and fail to make you laugh. As anyone who's seen basically anything Ricky Gervais has made over the last 15 years will know, he also desperately wants to make you cry, while allowing us to bask in his unique philosophical perspective on humanity and modern society that we've all heard, in one form or another, 200,000 fucking times. Presumably since he first discovered Richard Dawkins.
Some people would say that the scientific view is rather bleak and cold. Here we are on a cloud on a bit of dust, really orbiting the sun, and it's all going to be destroyed one day. Do you find it bleak?
There's no God-fearing person of any religion who feels as much awe as me when I see a mountain or a tree.
Or the stars.
Or the stars.
Ricky obviously wants there to be some kind of sincerity underneath all of the swearing, testicle jokes, and general unpleasantness. I don't know why, and it sounds ridiculous, but I think he really wants us to become emotionally invested in these characters, and when he eventually reaches for those bigger dramatic moments, or attempts to catch us off guard with a cat suddenly being hit by a car, to genuinely care. The problem is, at this point, Gervais might be incapable of sincerity.
There's a bit of meaning to it as well, that humans really should be doing a little bit better and they should care more.
Yeah.
It's a messaging in there on purpose.
Well, I did a post today that it's weird to think that people all around the world are watching a cartoon about cats that hate people. So I quite that, yeah.
What Ricky Gervais fails to realise is that any time this show attempts to shift into serious issues, it's painfully surface level, and almost as crudely realised as the comedy. Alley Cat spends so much of its time using its characters as vehicles for one-liners, insults, and increasingly outrageous things to say, that when it suddenly asks you to take them seriously as people, cats, you're just waiting for Ricky to undercut it with another C-bomb. Just like with Afterlife and Derek, he seems to rely on the idea of something being relatably sad to do all of the emotional heavy lifting, but he approaches all of these subjects with zero depth or subtlety. This has become a fundamental problem with Gervais's writing. He swings wildly between extreme vulgarity and extreme sentimentality, seemingly under the impression that the contrast alone can provide emotional depth.
Hey, it's my mate.
I don't know.
Ralphie!
Gus!
Hey! Ralphie!
No! Driver didn't even stop.
No, they don't have to. After all, it's just a cat. People don't care about us.
People don't care about anything except themselves. They don't even care about each other, to be honest.
As Ricky's later work proves, sentimentality is not the same thing as sincerity. Making characters talk about death, grief, loneliness, love, or abandonment doesn't automatically make what they're saying profound. But even in a dumb cartoon about cats, you can still earn that response through the characters themselves, as long as you actually have some kind of nuanced perspective on these subjects. But Alley Cats just mimics the same tired talking points I've heard in every other show he's made. Except this time, they're alley cats.
I don't want to not exist. I want to live forever.
Well, in a way, you do live forever because we live on in the memories of the friends and family that knew us, and they remember things we did and said, and so even though we're not around sort of physically, we are sort of still here in a way.
Everything I've talked about so far is symptomatic of the same problem. This show is so unforgivably lazy. Very little seems to have been second guessed by someone willing to challenge Ricky Gervais's instincts. And that's probably the thing I find most frustrating about him, because good writing, particularly comedy writing, requires you to at the very least be able to challenge your own. According to Ricky, this is the first show he's made which has relied heavily on improvisation from the cast. But it's clear there wasn't any kind of solid comedic foundation here to allow for anything resembling organic conversation. Perhaps all this show really needed was just one person to say, at the earliest stage possible, maybe you should go back to the drawing board with this one, Ricky. Or even better, work with someone who knows how to write a show like this. But Ricky Gervais seems to think he's shit's gold at this point. And I guess technically, he does. Still, his self-assuredness is most perplexing when you consider what made some of his best work so brilliant. The Office is practically built around self-delusion. David Brent sees himself as a hilarious, intelligent, compassionate, universally beloved entertainer, while constantly exhibiting all of the worst traits of every insecure narcissist you've ever met. The comedy comes from the details, the specificity, but also from that contradiction between self-perception and reality. And yet Gervais's recent work seems completely unable to recognise that same contradiction in itself. I guess when you've spent years being told you're a genius, selling out arenas, winning awards, and cultivating this image of yourself as the comedian brave enough to say what everybody else is supposedly too afraid to say, I imagine it becomes difficult to entertain the possibility that sometimes you've just written a shit joke.
I do sort of joke about taboo subjects, so I might do 20 jokes about different taboo subjects, and everyone laughs at 19 and doesn't laugh at the one that affects them or they think they take personally.
They've got their own red line.
Yeah, there's always someone who doesn't like a joke somewhere, but you just got to hope that overall you're doing okay.
Yeah,
I think.
And that's a good point, because I wanted to talk to you about alley cats.
Yeah.
Whenever Ricky Gervais releases something these days, whether it's a new show or a stand-up special, I've noticed public conversation tends to follow a familiar pattern. Plenty of people criticise his work from a nuanced point of view, and he generally ignores them altogether, but find one person complaining about something they thought was outrageous, and he'll happily elevate them on his social media page just to publicly roast them, allowing every criticism to be conveniently folded into the idea that some people are simply offended. Because, let's be honest, no sane person is offended by alley cats, Ricky. I wish I could say I was. At least that would mean it had provoked some kind of visceral reaction from me, and I wasn't just so fucking bored. Some of my favourite Gervais material is objectively offensive. But as I'm sure he knows, being offensive and being funny are two completely separate things, and dismissing somebody who doesn't laugh as simply being unable to handle the subject matter is a very convenient way of avoiding any discussion about the quality of your product. Either way, this show is quite literally the least offensive thing he's ever made. Unless of course you're offended by having your time wasted. But then, if you actually sat through all 6 episodes and hated it half as much as I did, that's on you. Or me, I guess. It's kind of absurd to claim that critics hate Ricky Gervais. Sure, some of them probably do. He spent the better part of 2 decades deliberately cultivating a provocative public persona, and I personally know plenty of people who find him utterly insufferable. Regardless, Gervais has won an absurd number of awards over the course of his career. If the critical response to his work has deteriorated over time, you could look at that in 2 ways. Either the entire critical establishment collectively decided at some point that Ricky Gervais was no longer funny, or perhaps his work just got worse and worse and worse, until finally he hit rock bottom.
If it wasn't for the swearing, it is really cute, and I think the values of them are upheld. I think it's uplifting. I think it's philosophical. You know, I think they're wonderful cats, but there is swearing. It is a sitcom. It's a sitcom.
It's shit. It's a shit sitcom.
It's a shitcom.
And this is where everything I've been talking about comes full circle. If every negative review can be dismissed as bias, every person who doesn't laugh can be dismissed as offended, and every success can be held up as evidence that you were right all along, then what possible criticism is ever going to get through? In Ricky's case, clearly none of it. And that is how you end up with Alley Cats. A lazy, ugly cartoon that's aggressively unfunny, desperately wants to be touching, and more than anything else, feels like the work of a man who savours the smell of every fart he releases. Like Andy Millman, a character he once co-created, he tunes out meaningful criticism and surrounds himself with the voices telling him exactly what he wants to hear, while repeatedly glazing himself about the fact that his show is number 1.
Alley Cats is number 1 on Netflix. All my stand-ups were number 1. Afterlife, every series was number 1. But nothing means as much to me as this number 1.
So, is Alley Cats the worst thing Ricky Gervais has ever done? Abso-fucking-lutely. But actually, I think Ricky himself put it better than I ever could.
And the reviews, shocking. I saw one that said, "This is the worst thing to happen to cats since dogs," right?